Hey lovies, it's Christina with Karma's Eye Psychic LLC here on Universal Spirit Podcast, and today we are going to be talking about why our spell work doesn't work. Okay, so I get this question a lot in many different ways, and I've answered it in many different ways the way I'm going to answer it today, but I'm going to throw the bulk of it on you in this episode alone, especially if you're wondering why your magic isn't working in general, because of course you're gonna wonder why that's happening, and you're gonna realize that it's happening when you realize nothing is happening. Okay, the only thing you really get is just poof, it didn't work, right? We're going to talk about weather, we're going to talk about moods, biases, physical health, astrology, and how long you can hold your focus, having to do with why your spell work is not working. And I know if you are, in fact, a seasoned practitioner and you're listening to this, you're going to cringe just a little bit because I'm going to save the absolute best for last. And you're going to notice that you're not going to be hearing it for a while. So keep listening. So first, we're going to talk about bad weather. Whenever you are beginning or starting a ritual or setting intentions, you could even have, an idea of what you want, but right when you're getting ready to execute the ritual or the spell, and you just happen to notice that the weather is not going to be so great, well, I would definitely advise against continuing that ritual. Whether you are indoors or outdoors, it really doesn't make a difference. Weather has a say in how well or how bad your spell is going to go, because you're sending your spell out into the universe, you're sending it out into nature, right? Sending it out the window, out the door. It's going to eventually end up outside in the physical of nature, right? And some examples of bad weather, which would be pretty much all bad weather, but I would have to name them like individually. Like one, like, let's just be so for real, like if there is a hurricane, okay, or a tornado, or like a major thunderstorm, like you should not be setting intentions, because apparently nature's intentions at that very moment or that day are just gonna have to override yours, okay? And all of your efforts and all of your, emotions and all of your energies. Understand that you can use that energy to charge your intention, but it's not going to do well for you to actually start stepping forward toward your intention with all of that chaotic energy. Even on days where there is excessive rain or even high winds, whenever the weather is in a position to be very damaging, right? When the weather is just ridiculously excessive, don't do spell work, okay? Because it's just like sending out like a feather into that, and you don't know where it's gonna land, and it most likely is not gonna land where you intend it to land, considering all the other forces that are going to affect it. So please always remember that. All right, now we're going to be moving on to mood, how you're feeling when you are doing rituals and setting intentions. And under these conditions, I do not recommend. So the first one is depression, or being depressed in any type of way. When you have noticed that you have stopped enjoying things that you love, you just decided to dwell on something negative for a very long time, and you have just let yourself go in a mentally or an emotional way. Our moods are pretty much affected, or even attracting certain spirits and energies. So an emotion or a mood like depression is only to attract negativity and very low vibrational energy. So low vibrational energy does not bring about the things that we would naturally want, what would be to live and be fruitful and happy and excited. It brings about pretty much, death, depression, hard times, and whatever negative energy, whatever negative thoughts you were focusing on, disaster and chaos, and those types of things will be in your ritual work, and it's not gonna be hitting. It's not gonna work. If you are angry, or if you have anger problems, this is a real thing. This is something that you can also diagnose with a professional care provider. Okay, anger is something that you might need to deal with. You might need to understand that's why your spell work is not working. Now, I'm not saying that this is an absolute, this is definitely why it's not working. I'm just saying that these are things that you need to learn and understand about yourself, about self. When you notice things just aren't doing it for you, right? If you know that spirituality and witchcraft is for you, and you notice yourself being a lot angrier lately, and you notice that none of your magic is working, you might want to check that out. You might want to, get some counseling for that. The next one is, we're coming up on sadness and mourning. Okay, and when you're mourning the loss or death or disappointment, or just a simple failure, okay, what you consider to be a failure, and you're putting that into your magic, it is not going to fulfill itself. It's going to be poof, it's going to be like a puff of smoke, and it will dissolve very quickly, if not immediately. Sadness is a very strong emotion, just like anger, and it's like a weight, and it brings you down. It does not vibrate up. It does not expand to higher realms. It keeps you here very, very earthbound. So your intentions are not going to be, quote unquote, high, your highest intentions. The last mood I want to talk about, it's really like a physical thing, but it's extreme fatigue, or just being annoyed, right? Just being annoyed at everything, being short-tempered, just kind of being very short with everyone and everything. But this usually is connected to extreme fatigue, when you just can't, stay awake or even stay focused for very long. How you are able to even approach a ritual in this type of mood is a miracle. But if you do, just understand that this is a recipe for disaster, and just a recipe for it to just absolutely not work. You kind of are wasting your own time, simply because your physical body and mind are just not in the right place. Now moving on to bad health. That kind of ties into bad health. First and foremost, do not do a ritual or spell when you are sick. And I mean every kind of sick. Okay, headaches, fever, nausea, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea, all of it. Okay, if you are sick, it's time to take a time out. Okay, because sickness in itself is just a low vibration. Okay, where it will physically cause you to just be bedbound sometimes, right? Or sleep bound, or just connected to a cup of water or ginger ale, or just a bottle of medicine, or just like needing to be in silence or in the dark, right? We all know what a migraine feels like. And if you are sick, don't be lighting candles with a migraine, okay? And you can't even see the words that you need to recite or remember, what it is you need, because you're not going to feel the feelings that you want the outcome to be. You're going to feel sick, and those are the results you're going to get. But sick intentions, right, or sickly, energy doesn't project any result at all. Like I said before, it kind of just fizzles out, like smoke. It's not really hitting anything. It never clearly or concretely manifests into anything. The second thing about bad health would be, poor hygiene. Okay, and I'm gonna mix this in with being disheveled, poor hygiene, and just poor self-care. Right, this means like you're not brushing your hair, you're not brushing your teeth, you're not showering, you're not putting on clothes that fit or clothes that are right, or you just decided to just not leave the house. Right, like you're leaving your body in this state of that it's not presentable, or it's not healthy, it's not very it's not smelling very well either. As a disclaimer and a sidebar, for those of you who can get your period or menstrual cycle, doing spiritual work during your menstrual cycle is not forbidden. Okay, so I do not believe that it is a closed practice to do that, or that it's sacred or nothing like that. Your menstrual blood is sacred, yes, but I mean, you can do spell work on your period, okay? Because sometimes that's like the best time to do it, because sometimes you are feeling your best. However, some people who get their menstrual cycle don't feel 100%. And if you're one of those people, avoid doing spell work during that cycle. I do understand that you might want to, charge your body or your spirit, and you feel like that's the way to do it. I'm going to tell you right now, if you cannot handle your menstrual cycle on a physical level, it's going to wipe you out on a metaphysical level. So you're kidding yourself if you think that it's going to be stronger. If anything, it'll just make you weaker. Okay, it will definitely fizzle out your intention. And if you are going through a lot of pain, okay, you're only going to focus on the pain, and you're not going to focus on your intention. So please refrain from doing magic if your menstrual cycle is going to wipe you out. And I'm pretty sure you guys understand what I'm trying to say at that point. Next, we're going to move on to one of the biggest blockages of spell work, which are biases. And strap in for this one, because this one's is a hurdle. So let me tell you about how biases can block your spell work. So for those of you who don't know, bias is pretty much a distortion of truths that you were told over your lifetime, right? Evidence to prove things in favor of what you particularly believe, okay? And biases are very detrimental to spell work, especially when it comes to, pretty much any spell work, but I would say in particularly love work and job and money abundance work. And some of the biases that I have seen that have pretty much stopped spell work in their tracks are racism, classism, religious bias, ableism, sexism, and political bias. Okay, all of these are problematic to trying to manifest your highest intentions, because if you are trying to be happy in a relationship and you want to bring in the love of your life that's going to love you forever, right? And the person that is brought to you, or at least the person that is meant for you, okay, with unbeknownst to you, could be somebody of a different race, could be somebody of a different political ideology, could be somebody of different physical abilities, okay? And you're wanting to manifest happiness, but you are thinking that I can only have happiness with this, and this, and that. And the universe can't deliver what you are seeking because you've put so many biases on your spell work. I know I'm butchering that word, bias. So keep that in mind. That's why when doing spell work, you have to have as much of an open mind as possible, because the universe is infinite. regardless of what others think or rules put in place by society or just by design or whatever, doesn't rule the universe. The universe rules all. So you can find yourself, in love with someone that you have never thought you'd be in love with, because you're two souls and two different bodies that might not make sense to the public. However, it makes sense for you because that's how the universe works. That's not how people work. Unfortunately, that's how people should work. And every day we're, inching our way to becoming more like the universe. Are we there yet? Not quite. However, just keep that in mind that if you throw all those bias on your spell work, you'll get little to no results at all. So you will not see anything manifest, and if it does manifest, it'll be like a tidbit of what you asked for, and it'll be very, very short-lived, just as an aside. Next, we're going to come up on astrology. This will be a short one, but astrology plays a part in your spell work as well. So I've talked many times about, knowing, your chart, your specific birth chart, knowing the zodiacs and the astrologies and conjunctions and the planets that are favorable to you, and knowing the ones that are unfavorable to you. Okay, so like I said before, as a Capricorn, I know when I'm going through Aries season, I know things are not going to be as favorable for me because it's one of my bumpy seasons. Okay, even when I go through Gemini season, it becomes a bumpy season. So I don't try to do any spell work, at least not for myself, during those times. So if you are unaware of those things and you are doing spell work in incompatible seasons, during conjunctions, during eclipses, and you just have no idea what the planetary weather is because you've done no research on that, then no, there's not a good chance that your spell work has even hit or even was thrown to begin with. Keep in mind that all the energies that you're working with, they have to work with all the energies too. So you have to be aware of all these energies that are at play and these things that are happening, because that's what your spirits are working with. So if you have no idea that the eclipse time, for example, that we just had, okay, is not a good time to manifest, and you did it anyway in the middle of this chaotic energy, and it's like, oh no, why did it backfire? Why didn't it work? Because the energy was not for that. So just keep in mind astrology. If you don't believe in it, just keep that in mind. Like I said, you gotta have an open mind. The next thing we're going to come to is short attention. And this is a doozy too, because if you are a scrollaholic, you like social media, you're on your phone with your friends all the time, or whoever, you're a workaholic, or you're home all the time, or you're always outside and there's always outside noise, and banger, 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 if you have children around all the time, your attention is going to be extremely, extremely short. So you're not going to be able to focus as well as you would like if you are executing rituals in environments that are constantly distracting you from your spell work. Okay? If you just can't keep a minute or 2 minutes focus on your spell work, it's not flying. It's not flying. You can't get a visualization. You can't even get a vision at all. You can't hear yourself think or even hear yourself talking on the inside. Your spell work is literally just going to be crumbled up like a piece of paper and thrown out the window. Okay? Also, if you can't keep, a long attention, you begin to doubt, and then you start to talk about how it's not going to work, that I might not be doing the right thing. Just putting, and after that, that's when the spell and the intention just stops. It dies right there. Especially when you can't keep your attention, because then you feel that, oh, this might not be meant for me. A lot of negative thoughts get into your head. All right, so that's why just keep that in mind too when you're thinking about doing spell work that you didn't see any results from. How were you talking, to yourself and out loud? Lastly, this is for the seasoned girlies. You didn't do any divination, right, to spell work. That's why it didn't work. You did no divination. You did not ask your guides or ask anything whether or not this was worth doing, if it was even going to work, even remotely work. And you just dove in, not consorting with anyone or anything to help you or to guide you. You just decided, I'm just going to do it just because. And that is like a surefire way of not getting spell work done, or not getting it done correctly, or just at all. Okay? So if you were ever curious as to why these things were not working, why don't you check out, all the things that I mentioned here. And hopefully, we won't repeat any of these things, because I've done pretty much all of these things, and that's why my spells didn't work. But this was long time ago, and that's why I'm telling you now. These things can definitely keep spells from working, keep rituals from completing itself in your intentions, really just hitting the wall and failing completely. So you'll be waiting around for nothing, because with all these things, it's not working. Anyway, my lovies, this is again Christina with Karma's Eye Psychic LLC here on Universal Spirit Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and let me know if you found anything in this, in this work helpful to you. All right, see you later.